In times of war, you've got to act decisively, and politicians don't like making quick decisions, and particularly within an EU framework where you've got to get 26 or so other nations to agree. That is very difficult. And whatever criticism Boris gets at the moment, his decisiveness at the very beginning of this conflict when the Russians invade is probably the difference between Ukraine being overrun in a few days, which Putin thought was going to happen, and to a position we're in now where there is a chance that we can push the Russians back to the border. And it is also having a war-fighting mentality. Some of the European countries were so reliant on Russian gas and oil, it took them a long time to make a decision to realize that if we don't push the Russians back, Ukraine might not be where they stopped. So, yeah, I think this is a positive thing out of Brexit, that we have been able to take the lead. We've been able to support the Ukrainian government. And certainly in my discussions with the Ukrainian government and people like the Ukrainian ambassador in London, they will reiterate what John Bolton said, that the UK is the staunchest and, in the early stages, the most important ally that allowed them to fight back and hold the Russians and hopefully now push them back to the borders from February of this year.
And it's interesting you make the point, it was those critical early days, because in a sense that's when all the action, the strategic action was happening. It's when the big gains or losses were made. And that's when, if anybody needed some iron in their soul, that's when it was needed most.
Absolutely. That has been the key thing, the fact that we could react, because Putin gambled that we wouldn't do anything. Let's face it, when we didn't react in Syria, when they used chemical weapons over a number of years, that really emboldened Putin. And he thought the West were just going to sit back and let him carry on and take Ukraine. But luckily, people in this country, and I'm sure the security and the military advising Boris Johnson and the government, made him understand that we could not allow the Russians to overrun Ukraine, quite apart from, the very brave people there who are trying to defend it. Because if we'd done that, they would, have a very big foothold. And it was only last week that President Putin said he saw himself as the modern day Peter the Great, who some will remember conquered Europe back in the day. And that is certain that decisive early action by the British government, now being supported by the Europeans and giving vital weaponry that is required to push the Russians back. But that early activity by the British government, I think, was crucial. And I think Zelensky and the other Ukraine senior military and political advisors would absolutely underwrite that. But we must see it through to the end. Quite frankly, everything else we've been hearing about rail strikes and the cost of living crisis, has in effect been caused by Ukraine. If we don't prevail in Ukraine, the rest of it is almost irrelevant.